Today, I'm going to show you how to put narratives into action. And what I mean by that is we are going to take narratives and we're going to put them into movement activities. And in doing so, we're going to act them out with our bodies. The research indicates that those reenactments result in children improving their language comprehension, their language expression, their story comprehension, their story expression, and lastly, their executive function skills. So acting out narratives is a really great thing to do if you want greater gains, which I know you do. So let's get started. The first thing we're going to do is create a task-oriented movement therapy activity based on the elements of the story. So suppose the theme of the week is farm and the sound is the F sound. So first we're going to have the character, and the character will be the farmer. And then we're going to have our setting, and the setting can be a farm. Then we're going to have our problem. What's going to be the problem? The farmer lost all of his animals. So what's the emotion? How is that going to make the farmer feel? He's going to be worried. And next we're going to go into what action is he going to take? Action. And that action can be he can take his tractor and drive it around the farm to find his animals. Then he can scoop them up and put them back in the farm. And lastly, we can talk about what is going to be the consequence. The consequence of his actions is he's going to save all the animals and put them all back in the farm and check to make sure that he has every single one. So what I did is I just created a task-oriented movement therapy activity for the children to act out. Now, this is really neat because you might think this isn't really a story that has a lot of imagination. This isn't about ghosts and fairies and magic. This is no J.K. Rowling Harry Potter, and that's okay. The research indicates that these imagination stories are just as effective as these how-to stories, such as how to find animals and put them back in a farm. They're equally effective when it comes to language and literacy gains. So don't worry if you're like me and you're not really good at creating these imaginary fantasy fiction stories. Realistic how-to stories are just as effective. So we can simply find the animals on the farm, and that's just as good as stories that involve magic and ghosts and castles and fairies and dragons. They're just as effective. Thank goodness, because I'm not good at that. Now we're going to look at step 2. Step 2 is we're actually going to have the child tell us the story. What are they going to do before they do it? So I like to use cues here. I'll have the child, at first I'm going to talk with the child, and then I'm going to stop talking and let the child take the lead and be the teacher. But we're going to say, first, we're going to drive the tractor. Next, we're going to scoop up the animals. Then we're going to throw them in the barn. And lastly, we're going to check the checklist, because that's how we save the animals. So that's going to be the story the child is going to tell. And at first, I'm going to give them lots of cues. And then I'm going to stop talking. And then after that, I'm going to pull back on the cues, always making sure that they're 80% accurate and independent. After that, there's a third step. And that third step is after the child goes and puts the animal on the farm, they're going to come back and they're going to check their checklist. And this improves executive function. They went through a multiple step process that involved them identifying a problem, creating a plan, taking action, and lastly, checking it to completion. So they're going to check their checklist and make sure that they've saved every single animal. This is very important for our kiddos with executive function difficulties because many of them do not complete the task. They get started on the task, they get distracted and they're off, or they get started on the task and they don't finish it. We want them to go through the multiple step movement process and finish the task. This will improve their executive function skills. So those are the 3 steps. It is that simple to take narratives, put them into actions. And when you put those narratives into actions, once again, you're going to improve language expression, language comprehension, literacy expression, literacy comprehension, and executive function. That's the additive effect of not only telling a story, but acting it out. So take those 3 steps, put them into practice today. And this is going to bridge that research into practice. If you are interested in learning more about early literacy intervention, check out my 4-course series for speechpathology.com. It is awesome, if I do say so myself. The first series, we look at risk factors for literacy delays. The second one, we're looking at print and how we can integrate print in a meaningful manner. Thirdly, we look at phonological awareness and how we can integrate that into our speech and language therapy. Fourth, we look at narratives. If you really want more on what is the research behind improving early literacy intervention and what can we do today to bridge that research to practice, check out the early literacy intervention series at speechpathology.com. Now it's time to roll up your sleeves and make the world a better place, one child at a time. You are always going to be first.